Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. As you can see, I'm still traveling, but I will still try to bring you the information about the situation that is happening in Ukraine or around it. In this case, mostly focusing on the around it part, where the NATO 75th anniversary summit has just concluded. It is an important summit. It was an important summit because last summit that was held in Vilnius, Lithuania, was very underwhelming on decisions, or more importantly, indecisions that NATO made with regards to both Ukraine and their internal policies as a NATO cohesion and what it represents in itself as an alliance. Since that last year, certain developments have been made. Most notably, NATO internally was able to overcome some of the destructive forces that are preventing the actions for the alliance to be done by the alliance, to use the alliance as the framework for it. I'm obviously talking here about Hungary. But other than that, there was a lot of expectations from this summit. Most notably, the expectations that I think every Ukrainian supporter was really looking for is to finally NATO to come out with strong messages condemning Russia, get up with a strong position stating that they will protect their borders, they will protect their partners, and they will make sure that Russia will not achieve its goals. Unfortunately, the willingness and the expectations, let's just say politely, were not met. To be more precise, were more like a fart in a puddle with a very silent blip. It was a very sad day for supporters of Ukraine. And I would potentially even argue it was a very sad and maybe even scary day, well, days, for a couple days that NATO summit were, for people that are considering NATO to be this indestructible, monumental alliance that will definitely protect its members. Because there was a lot of hot air discussions, there was a lot of statements, there was a lot of talks about stuff. However, not a lot of decisions that would shake the security sphere of the alliance that came to fruition. Now, I must preface this that obviously we don't know everything. That definitely a lot of the discussions and maybe potential agreements for the future are behind the closed doors. That is something we cannot dismiss. However, what was made public was very, very weak. It was very, very flimsy, and it didn't deliver the expected messages. Most notably, when Ukraine asked, can we please strike the Russian targets, Russian airports, it has been not just kind of generally discussed that no, Ukraine shouldn't use ATACMS. It was more and more underlined and underscored that NATO does not look for quote unquote escalation with Russia. It's This rhetoric has been driving me mad since day one. You know that very well. And I'm pretty sure most of you, it has been going on. But this rhetoric now is becoming more and more open. If before it was something that was behind closed doors and we were just wondering why don't Ukraine strike certain things or why Ukraine doesn't do certain things, now it's kind of just become completely open and out there. So one of the big discussion that happened relatively early is two major announcements. One was that Poland and Ukraine signed a security agreement, and as a part of that discussion for the security agreement, Poland proposed or was in talks with Ukraine on the potential of shooting down missiles close to the Polish border above the territory of Ukraine, which is it's a very reasonable, it's a very, very, very reasonable request. It's security of the NATO allies. Russian missiles have already crossed the territory into NATO. And let's be very, very clear. Shooting down a missile is not escalation, right? But no, what came instead was basically a lot of pressure, most notably from Germany and United States, Joe Biden specifically, that came out and denied Poland even that option. These talks were very aggressively, as far as we are aware, were very aggressively shut down, that NATO must not essentially interfere and so on. The same kind of, not talks, but the things and knowledge was also that the French initiatives of sending more troops into Ukraine was also shut down, again, by Germany and the US, most notably Joe Biden. I'm going to continue calling it, and we're going to come back to why. Then the second important point came from discussion of Zelensky and newly elected Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. And in that discussion, it was supposedly talked about that giving Ukraine the ability to use United Kingdom's Storm Shadow missiles to strike deeper targets inside Russia, most notably airfields and so on. And while initially these news circulated, again, the rumors are that it was US and Germany that came in very, very hard and shut down the potential for the UK to essentially single-handedly allow the strikes on the Russian airfields. So the message that Zelensky was really hoping to get, and a lot of Ukrainian supporters were get, that in light of the absolute brutality, the inhumanity that Russia is causing to Ukrainian civilians, it was the hope that the allies will find the courage inside themselves to actually respond to this and allow Ukraine to strike an important thing. We're not talking about striking some kind of political targets, Kremlin, try to assassinate Putin. The question is, allow Ukraine to strike the military airfields that host the planes that are taking off these fucking airfields and then fire missiles at Ukrainians' hospitals and children's hospitals and killing children. However, the hospital story absolutely did not take off. It was not discussed, and it's a very sad state of affairs when two major powers within the alliance, respectively the US with Joe Biden as the head of it, and Germany with Mr. Scholz in there, are actively defending Russia and actively denying Ukraine the ability to strike back. It is bad. And here is where I must call out Joe Biden, that when at the start of the year there was Trump and Trump supporters preventing the send of help to Ukrainians, it has costed a lot of lives for Ukrainians. It killed a lot of people that maybe I don't know, some people I knew, and so on. But the main point is it created conditions for when certain people that I do know lost their lives. It created conditions for Russians to kill some people that I respected and knew, maybe not too well, but still. It's very sad now that supposedly with all of the restrictions for the money coming off, we are now in a position where it is now the US is dictating that no, Ukraine should not be allowed to fight back the Russians, despite whatever Russians do. It is a very, very sad state of affairs indeed, especially, as I said, in the light of the strike on the Ukrainian hospital. The most importantly, if we're talking about what did Ukraine actually get from this summit, well, there has been certain nice things, like Australia is going to deliver one of the biggest, if not the biggest, support packages to Ukraine. I believe it's $250 million. So it's very nice that Australia is back in the loop for this. Denmark has made quite a couple of statements. One was that they will finance production of the Ukrainian artillery systems. Additionally, Denmark stated that they will deliver all of their anti-air systems to Ukraine, which is, again, very, very welcome. But if we're talking about the US package, the package was $225 million, and basically it got the only major practical thing that Ukraine got additionally that was not announced before this summit, which is a new Patriot missile defense system, which is obviously nice, but it's not really that great. So here we're coming back to the Joe Biden and everything. So when I saw the package for 225 million, which is, let's be honest, like it's a lot. It allows Ukraine to be kept in the game. But my biggest question is not what I saw in the package, which is the new additional Patriot system, but it was more about what I didn't see. And what I didn't see is, despite all of the supposedly money has been available for Joe Biden, there has not been a stream of, for example, Bradleys, like 100 Bradleys every package. It's a possibility to do. It is quite possible to do, but it's not being done. There has not been additional capabilities supplied for Ukraine. US is still not dedicating any F-16 of their own to be delivered to Ukraine. All of the F-16s that we're going to talk about in a second are being delivered by other countries. US is helping facilitate that, but US is not delivering the F-16s. My question is, why? Why? Why are we always too little, too late, and not enough? And it's also prohibiting Ukraine to strike the Russians. So let's finish off with the F-16s. We now know the total number of F-16s that will be delivered this year. So it has been stated that Denmark and the Netherlands have already started the transfer of F-16s to Ukraine. And there are some news that I still cannot share to you with regards to F-16s. But we know that the process of transfer of F-16s is already happening. They are already flowing into Ukraine. I don't know how, I don't know in what condition and in which basis they will be stored. Again, this is obviously secret stuff. But we know the numbers, which are that 24 planes from the Netherlands are be coming this summer, 19 planes from Denmark, which will be coming this summer. And then additionally, Belgium and Norway are promised to deliver, I think in total is 6 planes, because Norway said that they will deliver 6 planes. But I believe it's for also further years as well. So both Belgium and Norway will deliver 6 planes by the end of 2024. Overall, Ukraine is looking to get over 120 F-16 planes, and right now there is not enough that has been committed. Zelensky has stated that they need over 128 planes to be efficient and fight the Russians on their foot, and it is unclear whether or not the allies will allow this, because again, we're going to come back to this later with this. Talking about F-16, the major problem obviously is the training of pilots of F-16. And thankfully, Canada came through. This time, they said that they will participate in the F-16 pilot training initiative. So they will pick up where, for example, Denmark will not be participating anymore with the F-16 pilot training, which is great news and I'm happy to see. Moreover, talking about planes, Sweden has declared that what we were expecting, the news there were pretty much right. They confirmed that while Gripens are potentially in the pipeline for Ukraine to be delivered, they are looking to deliver the Gripens after F-16 deliveries have concluded. So essentially, once Ukraine gets comfortable with flying F-16s, they will start considering delivering Gripens. But here we come finally to the main point of my frustration, which is the Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan, and it's very, very clear that it is his way of looking on how to defeat, quote unquote, defeat Russia is specifically being accepted by Joe Biden, and it is what dictates not only the agenda for Joe Biden and what America does and does not, but also dictates for what NATO does and does not, as we've seen by the decisions that have been forced on Poland, the decisions that has been forced on UK. It's quite sad that the state of affairs is this specific man, because in his speech on NATO summit, he very clearly stated what is their goals. Now, you needed to read a little bit between the lines, but what he stated is basically this, that whatever we're doing, is working. Russia is becoming weaker, so we want to make sure that this pain continues accumulating for Russia over time, and then at some point Russia will feel suffocated, and if we just escalation manage this, then essentially Russia will fall apart, we win, and they will stop this war like the war in Vietnam was stopped, and we prevent the nuclear conflict. So it's both Jake Sullivan that is afraid of being quote-unquote confrontational with Russia, but it's also Joe Biden that is afraid or unwilling to be quote-unquote confrontational with Russia. It is sad. It is absolutely sad, and more importantly, it puts very, very, very bad questions on the table for NATO. Is NATO even capable to defend itself? We always talk about what is the alliance Article 5. There is obviously the looming threat of Donald Trump. And don't get me wrong, I bitch here about Joe Biden, and I explain that what he's doing is not good. But Donald Trump is devastating. If what Donald Trump is planning is approximately in line with Project 2025 that is being right now flown around, which seems to be the case, it basically removes NATO from equation. It creates such a unhealthy paradigm that it requires a video of its own to explain this. It would be absolutely devastating for our alliance, and to be questioned if there will be even an alliance. So while Joe Biden is questionable and weak and ineffective, and it puts us all in danger, whatever Trump proposes just basically signs off that danger to no end. So if there is a option to choose between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, you must choose Joe Biden. However, don't think that Joe Biden is a good option. I think this is a question of the least bad ones. Because one of the most important questions that were asked and in Vilnius summit a year ago was this woman right here. And she asked that her son at home in Kiev has been sitting on the floor in the apartment where the missiles were raining down. And in short, she asked Jake Sullivan, should she prepare this boy that is now 11 years old at home, should she prepare him to go fight the Russians when he becomes 18? And essentially, with his statement this year, Jake Sullivan, with his speech, the answer is yes. Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden basically state, we will try to suffocate Russia, we'll try to put pressure with Russia until Putin changes his mind. And no matter how many Ukrainians will die or what it will cost, we will prevent any potential for us to get confrontational, so there will be no strong responses of NATO, and it's going to be Ukrainians that will be paying with their blood until Putin changes his mind because of all of the pressure. It is devastating, and to be honest, you should not have been in the room when I was listening to it, because it was full of swear words, and we don't swear on this channel. But Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, said it also very clearly about the Putin's recent attack. If you didn't know, US and German intelligence were able to prevent the assassination plot by the Russian government on the head of Rheinmetall, the biggest European weapons producer and the main weapons producer for the German military and a lot of the militaries across the Europe. It's a very important guy, let's put it this way. And this is basically the act of war, assassination of such a key figure. Yet, despite all of that, the response is practically mute. The response is still, as Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, says, that we are just being quote-unquote too polite. She is stating that despite all of these plots, despite all of these hybrid, and to be honest, not very hybrid when there is an actual assassination plot involved, so these attacks against NATO defenses so far raises just, I don't know, just lazy chatter in the backlines of the NATO alliance. We are not raising our alarms, we are not being defensive enough, and more importantly, we are not being aggressive enough in response to the threats that are piling up from Russia and other sources. I have always said that I support democracy with big guns that make sure that the dictatorships around the world knows that it should not be messing with us. With the leadership of Joe Biden and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they are right now driving and showing that NATO is weak, it's pathetic, and it cannot respond. Dictators don't calculate the cost-benefit analysis based on data, how they would consider whether they will beat NATO in an open fight or not. They oftentimes act on their gut feeling, most notably if the enemy looks weak, how much can I take from it? So despite the fact that probably all data can show that NATO can be defeated, if dictators such as Putin will see that NATO looks weak, that only empowers him and emboldens him. So, for example, as NATO looks weak, instead of reconsidering his actions in Ukraine, he instead is going to double down and think that's like, okay, I just need to go and kill about 100 more Ukrainians every day, and then the things will start looking up for myself. Ukrainians are right now paying with blood for NATO indecisiveness, for what our leaders is doing. And this is unforgivable, and I am very sad that this is an alliance and powers that are representing me. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry for this sad note ending. I will give a proper update already in the next video. I love you all. Slava Ukraini, and I'll see you next time.